Hello, my name is Katie Donovan, and I'm really delighted to be reading for this year's Limerick Literary Festival. And I'm reading my poems to you from my home in Dalkey, County Dublin, on a windy, freezing day. Lovely to be inside and cosy. So I'll start with a poem that's very much about both the themes of this year's festival, home and abroad. This was a poem written when I was giving poetry readings in America, and I happened to be in Florida and was feeling very homesick. Now, I suppose I would have the opposite feeling of being rather sick of being at home. But then I was missing my home and kind of worried about it. So I dedicated the poem to Bridget. And as it is February, Bridget's month, I thought I would start with this poem. Prayer of the Wanderer to Bridget. Raccoons shriek and alligators creep beneath my window. Trees are lapped by waterlog, their arms bearded with the tangled grey of Spanish moss. My hands are wrinkled and lost. I wish for a moon cow to carry me home to the land of apples. I would lure her to my house with sweet grass. I would press my face against her fragrant belly and try for milk. I have left her sign of woven rushes over my door while I roam this place of swamps and broken shells. I pray she keeps all safe till my return. Let my house not be fallen nor eaten in flame. Let my loved ones flourish and my garden thrive. One glimpse of the white star on her great head would give me peace. Even her hoofprint in the night sky would tell of home. So the next poem I'm going to read for you is a love poem, and of course February is not only the month we associate with Bridget, whether it be the saint or the pagan, it's also the month where we celebrate Valentine's Day. And I'm sure there are many people during the several lockdowns we've endured in the last year who have experienced the pangs of long-distance love. And this is what this poem is about. It's about missing and obsessing about the one who is far away, the loved one. Yearn on. I want you to feel the unbearable lack of me. I want your skin to yearn for the soft lure of mine. I want those hints of red on your canvas to deepen in passion for me, carmine, burgundy. I want you to keep stubbing your toe on the memory of me. I want your head to be dizzy and your stomach in a spin. I want you to hear my voice in your ear, to touch your face imagining it is my hand. I want your body to shiver and quiver at the mere idea of mine. I want you to feel as though life after me is dull and pointless and very, very aggravating. That with me you were lifted on a current you waited all your life to find and had despaired of finding, as though you were wading through a soggy swill of inanity and ugliness every minute we are apart. I want you to drive yourself crazy with the fantasy of me and how we will meet again against all odds, and there will be tears and flowers and the vast relief of not I, but us. I am haunting your dreams, conducting these fevers from a distance that leaves me weeping and storming and bereft. I want to say how proud I am that this love poem of mine, Yearn On, appeared in Staying Alive, Real Poems for Unreal Times, a wonderful, groundbreaking anthology from Bloodaxe Books. So the next poem I'm going to read for you is inspired, partly inspired by the wonderful work of Marina Warner into nursery rhymes and folklore, but also from a newspaper headline that I saw in The Guardian a couple of years ago, which was, and I quote, "The market for sex dolls is on the rise." So this poem is called loose talk. Nag, prattle, palaver. He's had enough of loud-mouthed chatter. Better to invest in a lifelike version. A girly robot doll, great for sex, and a button to press if he wants talk. The deluxe model will laugh at his jokes. Unless she entertains, he prefers the dumb tongue. I'm with the old wives. It's our tales that get told. Silence is false gold if it swallows up assault, incest, rape, medical mistakes. I'll speak as I wish, roses or toads, with the audacious gossips. No secret safe between our lips. Because of the lockdowns, we're noticing more about the animal world around us. As I speak, I'm aware that the crows are gathering and cawing and cackling in the tree outside because they're getting ready to go and roost for the night. They make a big noise before they do that, as if to reassure each other that they will see each other tomorrow. And this next sequence of poems that I'm going to read from is called Foxed. It's about a fox that I noticed coming to my garden some time ago that had a very bad case of mange. And I did a bit of research online and found that homeopathic drops seemed to help some foxes with mange. So I began to feed him with drops in the food and noticed some improvement. I became a fox physician. So this is part of the story. Foxed. A thief, a killer, a miscreant, ignored, despised, driven out. He waits in the garden, shivering in the April chill. Inside, we are full-bellied, warm and well. His fluffy ears and smart black socks look fine, but his flanks are bald. His tail a dangling rope. His skin is on fire with pestilent mites. Snap go his hungry teeth, scratching himself. 3 weeks now he's been turning up for this, a dish of meat laced with healing drops. So far, there's been no change. He wanted a lifeline that day he crept close to show me his ruined coat. He'd lost everything, rest, heat, comfort, the energy to scavenge, even fear. The upshot of mange is slow starvation. I've had enough of watching death win. I took the challenge. I reeled him in. He hunches bone thin, back legs tender and limping. The bands of fur around his eyes are ringed with crusted tracks. The ginger cat stalks him, but he's not tuned for play. He shies, accustomed to being moved along. The birds are busy, flitting and darting, enjoying the long day, boasting of nests. Under their feeder, fox snuffles, hoping for dropped nuts. What I give him is never enough. While they sleep in feathered bunches, fox finds the outdoor larder I've forgotten to close in the back, where he knows he's not welcome. He drags out a pack of biscuits, scoffs the pink slabs, and gulps down the paper. One day he found my glove and ate the leather finger. He sets aside the raw bone he will cache to eat later in the lean hours. He licks out the dish, then lifts the bone firmly in his jaw, trotting off with purpose. He's back at twilight as the cold sets in, wanting more. I see a pus-filled lump beneath the new tufts, finally clothing his long-suffering tail. I assemble salmon scraps, topped with echinacea. I've a lot riding on this fox. I'd better not fail. He sits waiting, ears cocked, circling when I emerge, bowl in hand, redolent of the butcher's floor, offcuts I have begged on his behalf. After eating he lingers, yawns, and curls beside his feline double, a coppery pair, toasting in the sun. He likes stale cake. His ears lie flat, and his jaw works blissfully, his whole body focused on it like an arrow. I find a patch of flattened grass where he lay. Long, dry stalks make a fine summer bed. By August, russet hairs cover his haunch, his white-tipped tail, plumes full. His golden eyes survey the garden. Next door a drill grinds, the rain slaps down. He holds his ground and waits. This is his place. This next poem is called Snowdrops, and I must say I love in January when they begin to appear and I realise actually winter is not going to last forever. So I have them in the garden at the moment, and they're a great source of solace when the wind is howling around the house and it's so freezing. Snowdrops. Snowdrops push slim green helmets through clogged leaves and ragged nettles. It took a while for my addled eyes to find their spears. Only when I turned away, an opalescent flash pulled me back. It's been a bit of a struggle, they seemed to say, what with the rain, the weeds and all. But we haven't given up, just yet. So another flower poem I'd like to read for you. This one is about bluebells. It's called Salvage. It was written last May, one of 4 poems commissioned by Dunleary Rathdown Arts Office. And they did a great job of commissioning us locals to produce poems or crafts, various goodies that they then placed into the library book order parcels of local cocooners. A really lovely and enlightened initiative, and I was delighted to be asked to take part in it. And my poem was also produced on this beautiful card. Salvage. Spring sky, white cat, bluebells, cobalt, silver, and delicate frilled pinks. They rise through nettle, bramble, wild garlic. The cat prances. The bluebells offer their silent music. Once I picked an armful from the woods. I was 6. Now I see a snapped stem and reach to save it. I place the orphan in water on the windowsill. Drink this, I say, and live. This next one is called In a Perfect World, and it's about the imperfections of my garden, but my deep appreciation of everything that grows there. In a perfect world. I'd rather my old cherry with her white earrings let herself flourish, instead of drying out so her sap feeds daughters. I'd rather hollies stopped eating all the light in patches of sullen green. I'd rather the tulip wasn't gnawed before she had a chance to reveal her red. I'd rather the cleavers didn't try to climb over the daffodils. I'd rather the cat didn't snatch a blue tit and eat it. I'd rather the shed wasn't a tangle of discards. I'd rather the children played in their expensive treehouse. Still, at this full moon, full spring, air tart with promise, I relish the pink flowering currant and orange-blossomed berberis, a bumblebee droning in the scarlet-starred quince. The forsythia blazes up, and the bluebells have decided to take over the universe. Even the obstreperous wild garlic offers me its flowers to garnish my lunch. I'd like to read some poems now about travel, while, as you can see, the only travel I can do at the moment is to move from one room in my house to another, which I have done for the sheer excitement of it. I have done a lot of travelling in my life, and I found it very inspiring. A little bit like Kate O'Brien, for whom the Limerick Literary Festival was originally named, who loved Spain and travelled a lot. I get inspired, I see things anew, even things that I've left behind at home appear in a new light, which can be the catalyst you need to begin to write, in my case a poem. So in my 20s, I went to Hungary for a year. I taught English in a secondary school there. It was still just about a communist country, which I found fascinating and frustrating. And this poem is called Borzonie Hills. It was about going to a park near Budapest in the midst of winter and finding wild boar just living freely there. Borzonie Hills. Past the walled village, rutted cobbles, and yellow, twin-spired church, we nose into the hills to traces of snow on brown undergrowth. Our feet hesitate on unrooted ground, raised branches in our path, wine bells of Christmas roses collared in frost. Then there's a sudden break and run of boar, snouts up, trotters marking the path as their hairy bodies lurch past the skinny boles of hill trees in winter. Stilled and silenced, we listen until the last sound is our breath on the white air. While living in Hungary from 1987 to 1988, I used it as a way of travelling around and seeing other places, going to Prague, Krakow, places like that on the train. And one place which I had to visit was Auschwitz. And I know it has been claimed that no poetry should be written about Auschwitz, but I believe these atrocities have to be remembered because racism continues and we need to keep fighting it. Auschwitz. Auschwitz sounds like a mouth empty of hope, falling to the death hush. It's that hush which today's birds can't sing through, the tourist shuffle remove. The earth is replete with your lost flesh. In the prisons you built for yourselves lie the left behind things, the toothless brushes, loll-tongued children's boots, pots past their prime. A room full of your suitcases, locked hopes from the old life, left unopened. You are never more present than in these possessions that ink the outline of your lives. The piles of cracked shoes recall your naked limbs in the pits. Your swathes of hair fill a room. They took everything of you, saved it for us, whose tears cannot deflect the accusatory lenses of your broken spectacles. I was lucky enough to spend 2 years in California studying for a master's, and again used it as a way of exploring. And I went on a very cheap and fun bus tour of Mexico. And this poem was inspired by Chichen Itza, which is the ruined Mayan city in the Yucatan Peninsula. It's magnificent. Mexico, images. Quetzalcoatl, quiet serpent and swooping bird, when the solstice light feathers down the angle of the temple of the sun, you flicker into life, sinuous and hungry. At the mouth of the jaguar dwelling, an obsidian heart is nudged into my hand by laughing peddlers. A little black heart, memento of red living ones, ripped out centuries ago in the middle of these sleeping stones. Children, virgins, young men, fluting a different tune for every step of death, one for every foster family, for every last suck of breath. In the village, the faces are sober at our bare-legged show, and when we move to the musique tropicale, hands snake around us, reaching for crotches. They call us the ballerinas. The women won't look at us, ashamed for our foolishness. We retreat between our men. The crowd writhes around us. The black heart pumps against my goose-fleshed breast. And not so far away from Mexico, Brazil, I joined a group of travellers exploring several different parts of Brazil, from Rio into the interior. And this poem was inspired by an amazing park called Chapada dos Veadeiros in central Brazil, where I stayed with a couple of friends, and we were guided around by a young man called Luciano, who loved the Limerick-born and much lamented Dolores O'Riordan. He was a huge fan of her singing and her music, as indeed we all were and are. And so there's a lovely link here between Brazil and Limerick, which I thought I would highlight for you. A Breath of the Rose. Lovely Luciano leads me safely across the river, up the rain-slipped path, past the spines of giant palms and the fist-sized spider lurking by my foot, to the valley of the moon, where I glide in rocky saucers of dark water. At night he brings me to the forest pool. We bob in humming darkness, the tufted tops of trees and shy blur stars, our canopy. Lovely Luciano has a voice like honey. When he says my name, it sounds like cake. He has tawny eyes that watch and weigh, and a slender nape. In his heart he bears a rose for the music of an Irish girl he has never seen, Dolores, a name he lingers over, savours. Lovely Luciano makes me lemongrass tea when my stomach goes on fire. He left the millions in the city, the filthy air and traffic snarls, and taxi men with guns. Now he lives a simple life, eating pumpkin as the crickets fiddle, lazy in the portal, so much left behind. This next poem was inspired by a trip to Tokyo, where I spent a mere 3 days in a state of total jet lag for the sake of one poetry reading. But it was fascinating, and I learned a lot, was exposed a lot to a very different culture. And I suppose it's not just about being in Japan and trying to figure out how do I behave, what are the manners here, what is acceptable behaviour, what are the boundaries, and being slightly at sea. But I suppose it has a wider significance about life, fate, luck, the powers that drive our lives. How everything can be going smoothly and then suddenly not, and we just don't know why. The face, the situation. The face has the dignity of stone, the head carried just so, the eyes deep and opaque. There could be monsters and mermaids swimming there, but I will never know. The eyes do not see me. I obtrude myself. There is a faint flush in the cheek, a bow. The eyes slide over and lose me again. The profile is ancient, aristocratic. The lips proud and closed. Just when I think I am invisible and begin to hunch and creep like a worm beneath the queenly toe, there is a new situation. The mask flexes and is gone. The lips stretch in a hesitant smile. The eyes are glad. They rest on me. I am weighed on a regal scale. I tiptoe on my mettle. I tear into the moment. I defer. I claim attention, all on the sudden, trusted urges of an inner rudder, the arrow of myself, which I must hope is true. Now I am close to the face and find it glowing. I nestle and wonder at this change. Then I remember the situation is always metamorphosing, and the face with it. Tomorrow I may be dust again, the face shut against me like a palace door. But now a quiet hand is offered, and the face, marvellously soft, offers itself to be kissed. So our next destination is Norway, where I went to visit a friend in Oslo and decided to go and explore some of the fjords on a little solo side trip. And I found myself going on a trek up Nisehagen mountain and getting lost. So this is Lost in Fjærland, Nisehagen mountain, Sonjefjord, Norway. Blue crystals crown the valley, spilling an apron of ice with a subterranean churn of glacier milk, feeding the green sway of the freezing fjord. On the sheltered floor, windless meadows of buttercup, the hot smell of cattle in the grass. I'm halfway up the mountain, air clean on the tongue, a cuckoo in the pines, roll mop of fern, red lichen on grey stone, the rush and sliver of water melting down. At the top, wrong-footed by sudden drifts of resilient snow, I'm lost, alone, surrounded by sun, brilliant on white peaks, an insect in a blind desert. I squelch back without a path, ears tuned for the gush of the waterfall, hands and legs scrubbed raw by needles of dwarf scrub, stymied by a sheer drop of rock. I am hours scrambling in footholds, a wailing wreck stumbling over rotting wood, scree, sodden moss, clouts of snow, heart-stopping steeps of granite. Small clefts offer violets, heathers, the delicate bells of white flowers. I fumble on, sore, torn, bruised and wet, dragging my fears behind me like a skeleton. Sounds of sheep bells and wagging lambs give me joy, their brown pellets leading to something that might be a path. Then the breakthrough, when I find a shallow way to a slope of sapling birch, a sunny shelf where I sink into dry grass, my bones melting out of the claw of cold, watching a black spider leg it through the blades. Above, a red squirrel balancing on a branch. The creatures mock me at home here while I am at sea, my eyes averted from walls of rock, the chilly torrents crushing down, the fields and tops of ice. And so from Norway to the island of Lefkas in Greece, I found myself taking a lesson in water skiing, which was really exhilarating. I was on what journalists call a jolly. I was a journalist for a long time. And a jolly is a trip which a travel agent offers. The lucky journalist gets to go on the trip as a sort of sampler of what it might be like for a real tourist, and then write about it. Skiing on water. The silver surface of the bay pinkens in the mountains' folded rows, the evening warm as a loving cup, into which I fall like a cartoon Bigfoot, my hands reaching for the bar of the boat, body crouched and braced for the sudden pull, the quiver in the knees, then the miraculous up. Water breaking beneath my skim, the motor song of the boat pulling me on in a zoom current, through mountain and sunset, over the sheen of the sea, scudding and splashing beneath my swoop. I bend to the leap of spray, then rise again in the fleet throb, hair flung back, face split open in a whoop of glee, till the flight swooshes slow, and I drop off like a fattened bee, helpless and heavy from feeding on the wind, shaking from the force of what I have held. And now to Dalkey Quarry, which is just down the road from where I live. And last year I was asked by Anthony Kelly, who has created a sound map of Dún Laoghaire Rathdown, the sounds of its past, its present, the borough through the earphone, if you like. And he suggested I write a poem as a long-time resident in this area. And it took me on a different kind of journey, a journey back into my past, actually, because I was actually born in County Wexford on a farm. And this was the result. Pigeon. The afternoon is ringed with a pigeon's croon. Go home now, Katie, go home. Go home where? I had severed parents, one remaining on the farm, while the other moved on. My brother and I took the train, chuntering from Dún Laoghaire down the Wexford line each weekend. We'd brace ourselves for the unsettling, wary in transit, me the elder, bristling to defend him. On the farm, pigeons roosted in sheds brim with hay, rooks cawed in enormous trees, sheep bleated to frisking lambs. Sounds so different from the ice cream van, its tinny tunes echoing through suburban lanes, from the boats that clinked along the seafront, the foghorns. I stand in the quarry where the stone to build the harbour piers was hewn. In the vast hollow of remaining rock, the pigeon makes its call, a familiar song of displacement, exile, but one that built me. Well, the wind is howling around the house, it's freezing, and I cannot imagine going for a swim in the sea in February, although I know many brave souls who do. However, come May, I'll be down swimming, and I'll keep it up all summer. So this next poem, Dip, is about swimming at my local beach, White Rock. Dip. Scuff down sandy steps, arches stipple and sink on crunchy damp stones, shell rims. Toes, naked pink, lead the wade, skin gasping, going down into grey-green thick of salt, shiver of wave tip on thigh, belly, breast, up to the chin, hair ends ribboning, white arms marked with the cling of magenta fronds. Eyes rove to whale hump of mountain, pink and yellow of shore blossom, the island goldening up out of the mirror ball bay. My play body needs no virtual reality, only this late summer dip in the sea. Speaking of whales, because I love the sea, I get very upset to think of all that plastic that's bobbing around. and getting eaten up by dolphins and whales and turtles and killing them. And I think it's particularly ironic that it's often children's toys that they like to play with on the beach that get swallowed by these whales. So this next poem is from the point of view of one such whale. Lost Song. I navigate drowned forests, coral gardens, the backwash of cruise liners. My swallow drains the tides. I blow fountains. My tail divides the sea. I could last 100 years in this playground, but I've filled to starvation with nets, buckets, a snagged lump of plastic cast-offs. I sing my last song, an elegy for my family, for my ocean romps and mighty leaps. A human child finds my drying bulk flabbing on the shore. He looks into my eye, tiny hand petting my flayed skin. I groan in my agony. Poor whale, says the child, you lost your way. And one more poem about the sea. This one is from my last book of duty. And here I use the sea as a metaphor for sisterhood. And this poem, Deeper, is dedicated to a friend called Catherine Nunes, with whom I had a conversation one day that sparked the poem. Deeper. We go to the edge. We are fresh, ready for the lacy buffeting waves, toes gripping shingle. While our daughters squat on sand, immersed in shell games, the tide swallows our ankles, hungers around our legs. Eyes on the horizon as we wade, we know that one by one our heads will disappear. Already we have seen our mothers drown. We spend calm days avoiding stings, nursing hurts, judging and forgiving our faults. The sky is still a canopy our faces can enjoy. When the breakers fall, we stretch to lift each other clear, calling, "Sister, I am here. I am still here." So we're coming to the end of this reading, and it's been a pleasure. Slightly odd because I feel I'm addressing myself, but it's lovely to think that I am actually managing to make contact with a wider world of poetry lovers. So thank you for the opportunity, to you who are listening, and very much so to the Limerick Literary Festival for inviting me. This next poem is called What My Hands Touch, and it is about housework, which many of us in lockdown are having to do far too much of. And that sense of the never-ending routine of it, and wondering how it is for those people who are trying to clean up, who haven't got running water. What my hands touch. Every day, drool, excrement, nose snorts, spurts of sick, the vast gushing of water needed to clean up, wondering how the women cope who have no tap. Every day, baby skin, cat fur, stale bedding, rumpled hair, the vast gushing of water needed to clean up, wondering how the women cope who have no tap. Every day, my own brittling skin, veiny legs, nails that grow too long, the vast gushing of water needed to clean up, wondering how the women cope who have no tap. Every day, crinkle of old leaves, clouts of earth, errant roots and weeds, the vast gushing of water needed to clean up, wondering how the women cope who have no tap. Every day, greasy plates and bowls, tacky floors and toilet smells, the vast gushing of water needed to clean up, wondering how the women cope who have no tap. Wondering how the world would turn if all those women could turn the water on just as easily as I do. Only the desert would be left, a clean, lifeless vista of endless grains of polished sand. So I'm going to finish with two poems for my children, who I'm seeing a lot of at the moment. They're teenagers now, so they're immersed in their own worlds, in their rooms and their schoolwork. This was written for my son, who's an avid soccer player. Unfortunately, no soccer possible now, not even practicing with his team. But this is about a game that he played on a very unlikely day and ended up being a triumph. Winter Heroes. It comes to this. A frozen Sunday and a team of 6. We almost miss it because I'm lost, sleep-deprived, cursing soccer, navigating Drimna. How he races across the field, this boy who's honed his skills, suffered snubs, misses, injuries, lumpy pitches, slanted goalposts and biased refs. Once he's positioned, the stalled game can proceed. It's Cabo versus Bosco, bony knees and green socks, parents going mental in the raw glare and gusts. His team whirlwinds through mucky tackles, the lack of subs, the unfair penalties, studs hammering across the turf. Winter heroes these, outnumbered, away, they take the game, 4-3. And this last poem is included in a festschrift of poems and essays in honour of the poet Yvonne Boland, which was published for her after she turned 70. And we all feel the terrible loss of Yvonne, who died last year, tragically young. She was a wonderful mentor and a wonderful poet. We miss her terribly. So this poem is about my daughter, who went through a very hard time after her father died. She was diagnosed with all sorts of physical ailments, which I think had to do with her emotion. And one of those was asthma. So we began to visit this place called the Salt Room, which is apparently very good for helping with such respiratory disorders. And it made me think of that legend that Yvonne has written about so beautifully, of Demeter, or Ceres as she's also known as, and her relationship with her daughter, who she must live separately from for half the year. And the poem, which is very short and doesn't really merit such a long chat at the beginning, but however, you'll forgive me, it's the last poem. It's called Doors, and it starts with a line from one of Yvonne's poems. Our children are our legends. Doors. The room of salt claims her in crusted white and subterranean blue, my tender-cheeked girl, frosted into effigy. Shuffling in ice dust, I crunch through to pull her free. Lips puckered in salt, we move like blind yetis towards a spring day, a red car, the calling of passers-by, the opening of doors with their come hither songs. Thank you very much again. It's been my honour and my pleasure to read for you.